Welcome into the Wiltfong Whip Around with Steve Wiltfong. Today's Monday, September 30th. I'm your host, Josh Newberg, and we got the best insider in the country, Steve Wiltfong, on this show, ready to go. We are going to hit on the biggest developments coming out of another busy recruiting weekend. So all you guys got to do is sit back for the next 20, 30 minutes and get caught up on the biggest developments. But first, make sure you guys are subscribed to the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, the On3 Recruits channel. And also, if you're thinking about signing up for On3, and I know you are, let's get you there for just $1. That's right. I can get you On3 for just $1. Use promo code FONG1. Go to on3.com, use promo code FONG1, and you can get On3 for just $1. All right, let's get to it. We're going to start the show talking some Alabama, the impact, actually, of Alabama's win over Georgia. 41-34, instant classic in Tuscaloosa, and we had recruits reacting. Recruits actually were shutting down their recruitments. Talk about athlete Daryl Johnson, who has been involved with other teams, but coming out of this one, he feels really good about the Tide.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, recruits that were inside Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday night, taking in all the pregame festivities with College Game Day being there, Miss Terry making the picks, Alabama rolling out to a 28-0 lead. It was quite a scene there in Tuscaloosa, and I think it'll eventually pay off on the recruiting trail for Alabama as they continue to push for some of the best prospects in the country. They have the number 2 recruiting class in 2025. Most of them returned. It was about getting those guys together, continuing to build that bond, that cohesion, and they all see each other playing in this kind of magnitude of game on the next level. That's why Keelan Russell is committed to Alabama. He could have went somewhere else for more money, but he wants to win a Heisman Trophy. He wants to play in the biggest games in college football. Alabama is the place where he can do that. And him and his family had a great time in Tuscaloosa. So did Michael Carey, the 5-star offensive lineman, number 1 interior offensive lineman in the country. He's been keeping Miami warm, keeping USC warm. But Alabama, being part of that brotherhood he talked about, the defensive players helped recruit him to Alabama. He looks locked in. Dawson Merritt and his family had a great time out at Alabama this weekend. Dawson Merritt is obviously been keeping Nebraska warm, but like the Crimson Tide to hang on to him as it stands now. They're trying to flip guys like defensive backs Mason Dunn from Tupelo, Mississippi from Ole Miss, and then Ivan Taylor from the Sunshine State from Michigan. I feel better about Mason Dunn right now than I do Ivan. Ivan's going to visit Michigan for the Michigan State game. We'll know a lot more about his recruitment coming out of that upcoming visit to Michigan, but Alabama, certainly a program that still remains in his crosshairs. And then so many underclassmen, Josh, that were there that loved it. They're eventually going to ultimately land a lot of those guys that visited this weekend, whether it's Anthony Tank Jones, the number 1 edge rusher in the country, cornerback or safety Tylen Wilson is someone that I like Alabama for early. Zyke Helton's a former offensive line commit that was committed to Alabama that I like the Tide for. And I think that game more than anything, Josh, just shows you the cultures of those programs. We're in the opt-out era, right, where kids opt out of bowl games if they don't make the college football playoff. Kids are transferring left and right. When you play at Georgia and Alabama, your expectation is to win the national championship every year. But there's been some years where they don't make the college football playoff, and their best players, those guys that are going to hear their names called in the NFL draft early, they wear those uniforms one more time and play with pride in a bowl game that they don't want to play in. And I think that showed up in that game last night with how hard each team played and how Georgia never gave up and how Alabama was able to respond to Georgia. And look, I don't care if players opt out. People can do whatever they think is best for them, but it says something to your culture if you're an opt-out team and you have a bunch of players that opt out when you stack it up against Alabama and Georgia. Their cultures are tighter than everybody's right now, and those teams battled on the field on Saturday, and I hope we get to see it again in the future.
All right, Alabama fans, talk to Steve and I. How you feeling about the big weekend? A lot of recruits on campus. What will be the recruiting impact from this? Not just for the 25 class, but also 26 and 27. Alabama fans, let us know how you're feeling. All right, let's head down to Orlando, where Colorado, they left the friendly confines of Boulder. They go down to Florida and dominate UCF 48-21, taking down the previously undefeated Knights at home. And after the game, they were feeling good. Director of Player Personnel Corey Phillips tweeted that flips could be coming. Flip season is here. So, Steve, Colorado looking for more flips. Some names we've been tracking are Byron Baldwin, Carday Smith, Julian Lewis, but there's some more names to know on this list.
Yeah, and Josh, we call it spatula season on the Wiltfong whip around, not to be confused with flip season everywhere else. Dallas Wilson's a prospect that they're obviously swinging at. Jerome Miles is a 5-star receiver committed to USC that they're trying to get involved with. Samari Reed is a receiver that I believe that they're getting involved in right now, committed to Ole Miss, visited West Virginia earlier in the season. They'd like to make an impression on Jesse Harold, that top 100 edge rusher committed to LSU. He doesn't think he's going to visit Colorado right now. We'll see what happens. Mantrez Walker's a longtime Colorado commit that included some major targets in his tweet, and he included Kevin Wynn, on 300 defensive lineman, currently committed to Florida State, that Georgia and South Carolina, among others, are trying to flip. But Byron Baldwin, still like my on 3 RPM for Colorado to ultimately flip him. Penn State's trying to change that narrative. Carday Smith, he told me he's trying to get back to USC. I know him and his family had a great time at Colorado. Look for him to get an official visit scheduled back to Boulder as well. They're going to have big home games against Cincinnati and Kansas State. Those are going to be big recruiting weekends for Colorado. They're trying to line up some guys that we haven't even mentioned yet. So we'll see what names pop for Colorado in this upcoming game against Kansas State, because they're trying to work on some big ones behind the scenes. And then the biggest fish is Julian Lewis, right? 5-star quarterback, currently committed to USC, was back at USC this weekend. Colorado, they know they need a quarterback. I mean, they need someone to come in and be that guy after Shedeur Sanders. I would expect them to go into the transfer portal and try and land a player the caliber of like what Miami did with Cam Ward this past cycle. But I still think they'd love to get a young high school guy in there. Julian Lewis is target numero uno. But as we get closer to the early signing period on December 4th, Colorado knows that they can't just be caught hanging without a quarterback this cycle too. So it'll be interesting to see what quarterbacks they send out a ping to, who gets interested in them. Deuce Knight was a guy that they tried to recruit a while back. Maybe they try and circle around on Deuce Knight. Maybe some guys we're not talking about right now, but quarterback is going to become a point of emphasis for Colorado throughout the rest of the cycle. It's obvious Julian Lewis is their top target at the position, but they would like to land someone if it's not Julian Lewis.
Yeah. Now, Colorado beats Baylor. They beat UCF. They have a ton of momentum, and they head into the bye week. So it's usually a chance to recruit. Now, we know Coach Prime doesn't hit the road. He doesn't do that. But can we expect Colorado assistant coaches to hit the road this week? And how significant do you think it'll be to kind of track and see who they're seeing?
Well, I haven't heard anything one way or the other if their coaches are going to go on the road or not, but it's pretty standard practice that coaches go on the road during the bye week and do some recruiting. So I would imagine that Colorado falls in line with those standard practices, and their assistant coaches are on the road shaking some trees. And what a time to be on the road. You just waxed UCF on the road. You're building some momentum, got a few wins in a row. Travis Hunter's the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Shedeur Sanders is going to be on all those quarterback award lists following the season. There's a lot of energy on social media about Colorado. You look at what their locker room looked like pregame at UCF. It looked like a very exciting place to be if you're a young person. So I think there's a lot of kids resonating with the environment around Colorado football right now. They're seeing the results on the field. They're seeing young players making an impact out there. And then certainly a chance to be coached by a staff that has a lot of connections to the NFL. Go out on the road, kiss some babies, shake some trees, and see what prospects you can get to big home games coming up against Kansas State and Cincinnati.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see if that Buffalo's logo walks into Carrollton, Georgia this week to go see Julian Lewis.
Josh, there's a lot of kids that Colorado is recruiting right now that come from the beach or come from the flatlands or whatever. And they come out to Colorado and they see those mountains and the picturesque views and the ambiance around campus, and they are blown away that they could potentially live there, get coached by Deion Sanders. And it's just an exciting environment around the community. Is another secret weapon that I've noticed talking to some of these prospects with Colorado. Certainly the first draw is to come potentially play for Deion Sanders, but just being, if you haven't lived in the mountains before, it's completely foreign, and you can fall in love with it pretty quickly. And I've seen a lot of recruits and their families talk about looking up and seeing all those mountains around them and just how picturesque everything is around them in Boulder. They just love the community vibe.
Yeah, and like you said, there's some big visit weekends coming up after this bye week, so we will see Some big-time recruits out in Boulder, but right now, Colorado fans, how you feeling coming off of a dominating win in Florida over UCF with hundreds of recruits watching? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, let's head out to the Plains. Auburn loses at home 27-21 to Oklahoma. Auburn left some points on the board due to poor QB play. And that leads us to our first topic here. Deuce Knight, quarterback Deuce Knight. He took his official visit to Auburn this weekend. Now he's committed to Notre Dame, but Steve, what are you hearing coming out of his official visit?
I think it was another good visit for Deuce Knight and his family, and they continue to say all the same and right things to Auburn about the interest in the program, where Auburn stands, says the same to the Auburn commits and guys he interacts with on campus. But he's taken 5 visits to the Plains, going back to Big Cat weekend at the end of July, and then obviously the first 4 home games in September. And I think we're at the point now where it's obvious how Auburn feels about Deuce Knight, but they need a quarterback. And so I wouldn't be surprised if, look, they're going to continue to keep recruiting Deuce Knight, but let's see who else really pops up on the radar. We've been talking about on this show how dialogue's been picking back up with Julian Lewis. You still got KJ Lacey in state, firm commit to Texas, but Auburn can keep chipping away there, and we'll see what other names emerge at the quarterback position. We fully expect Auburn to go into the portal regardless of what happens on the recruiting trail at the quarterback position this cycle, to get a seasoned one-year guy and then have their young quarterbacks, Walker White, whoever they land in this cycle, then battle it out to be the starter the year following. And they want to land a frontline guy with that has championship level caliber talent. They've put together a heck of a recruiting class right now. It's top 5. And really, it's exceptional what they've done, Josh, without a quarterback in the fold. A lot of recruiting classes build around the quarterback. They don't have one in the fold. Now, I do think Deuce Knight has had some discussions with targets and commits about potentially playing at Auburn that has led them to believe that he would ultimately join them. But it is not a guarantee that he'll go to Auburn. And there's, Notre Dame's trying to get him back up to campus for the Stanford game. Ole Miss has kind of been lying in the weeds for Deuce Knight also. Could some other schools start popping up for him? He's just taking his time. That's the one biggest takeaway that I've heard from someone that spent time with them over the weekend, that he wants to take his time and not be rushed into making a final decision. And that's great. He has earned that opportunity to do that. But Auburn's in a position now where it's like, are we even sure we're getting him? We don't know for sure. So we need to see what else is out there. I think we're at that point, and we're getting to a point where it could become first come, first serve for that quarterback offer, and it's not just reserved for Deuce Knight right now. So, again, I think it was a good visit. I think family enjoys their time around the staff. I think they are excited about the potential opportunity at Auburn, but he just hasn't flipped his commitment yet from Notre Dame. And with that, after 5 visits to campus, you start to wonder, is this dude actually coming? I think that's where Auburn's at with it right now, and we'll see things pick up with other quarterbacks while maintaining, their strong relationship with Deuce Knight.
Yeah, makes you wonder. All right, coming up this weekend, top 10 running back Usman Kroma is announcing his decision. It was supposed to go down last weekend, but it's going to happen this coming weekend. Is Auburn the favorite heading into the decision?
Well, they were the favorite, in my opinion, heading into last weekend. Pushed back his decision. We'll have to do some more digging on that one. I think people around Georgia have always felt good that if they hit the gas on that recruitment, that he could end up a Bulldog as well. Florida State's had some optimism in that recruitment at various points, got him to campus again a couple weekends ago. And then Tennessee rounds out the list of finalists as they look for another running back in this cycle. So Auburn's certainly done a great job in that recruitment. Georgia's a program that you've always kind of kept an eye on as a dark horse, and we'll see what he does when he goes to announce his decision.
Yeah. All right, Auburn fans, this Deuce Knight situation, it felt like heading into the month of September, it was a matter of when, not if. Now we head into October. Now it's a little dicey. What's your gut tell you? Let us know on Deuce Knight comment section below. All right, let's talk Oregon recruiting. Ducks win 34-13 in a dominant win over UCLA, and the Ducks are looking to add another quarterback. That's what we're here to talk about. Steve, what are you hearing on who they'd like to pair with Achilles Smith Jr. in this 2025 class?
Well, they extended a new scholarship offer at the position last week. Cal quarterback commit Jaron Key Sagapolotele. He is from Hawaii. He was an Elite 11 finalist. He's 6'2", 215 pounds, physically ready to step into any college quarterback room from that aspect and push the room. Oregon has absolutely crushed quarterback recruiting from a transfer portal sense, right? They go out and they land Bo Nix, who ends up leading them on the verge of the college football playoff twice. They would have gotten in under the current landscape of college football with 12 teams. And then he's a first-round draft pick. And then you got Dylan Gabriel, who was a top 5 passer in college football last year that Oklahoma just let walk out of their program in favor of some younger guys. And then they got Dante Moore, who's lying in the weeds, a former UCLA commit that at one point was also committed to Oregon. You figure he is the quarterback of the future after Dylan Gabriel. When you get past Dante Moore, Dan Lanning, Will Stein and company, they don't want to be portal reliant at the quarterback position. And how fortunate are they that they got Dante Moore, who's got so many years of eligibility left out of the portal, a talented guy that just wasn't happy at his previous stop and there was a coaching change. They're able to, mend that relationship from him committing and then flipping, getting him back. But they want the high school recipe. You got Austin Novosad in the program from Texas. They flipped him from Baylor after Dante Moore flipped on them. They got Achilles Smith Jr. committed right now, but they want 2 high school quarterbacks. That's always been the plan. Bear Bachmeier was a target. Husan Longstreet was a target. Those guys are committed to Stanford and Texas A&M respectively. Jerron's having a great senior year. Anytime I'm in this group text with Charles Power and Cody Belair, when we're talking scouting and rankings at On3, Jerron and his play always comes up. And Oregon's the first major program to offer him after the type of season that he's having right now. And he called it a great opportunity. He says they produce great talent every year. They produce NFL products every year, and the offense is great as well. He's got to talk to his circle of trust about a potential visit. But anytime Oregon offers a kid of this caliber from Hawaii with just all the connections that they have to the state, the Marcus Mariotas of the world and everything like that, you certainly view them as a threat. And Cal got them in the fold in the summer, but now they got a battle to keep them. And as Oregon pushes for a top 5 class, this is another quarterback they'd like to build around.
Yeah. Speaking of flips, last week, right after we taped the show, Oregon flipped Douglas Utu, offensive lineman committed to Tennessee. So speaking of, what's the biggest need still left to fill for Oregon? And like you said, what do they need to finish top 5 this year?
Well, they're losing 6 of their 7 top offensive linemen following the season. They have a good offensive line class, guys that they think could play right away, including Douglas Utu. You would imagine they'll look in the portal a little bit. But Zach Staskowski from Portland is committed to Washington. They'd still love to add him on the offensive line. Linebacker is a position of need for Oregon, too. Noah McHale committed to Texas A&M. Oregon still having dialogue. And Caleb Burns is an on-300 linebacker committed to Baylor that the Ducks recently went on. And then tight end, they don't have one this cycle, Josh. Vander Plug's a guy we like a lot, on 300 recruit from California, committed to Washington. They're still shooting their shot with Lincoln Cure. I think that's going to be tough. But Vander Plug seems like that could have some realness to it, so they'd like to add him at tight end. Oregon, Miami, a lot of programs are swinging at USC commit Hayden Lowe, defensive end, edge rusher. Can Oregon make a run at a second straight top 5 haul? Yeah, I mean, I think that they got the names out there. They got to keep what's in the fold right now and then land some of these other elite guys, flip some of these other elite guys we just talked about.
All right, Oregon fans, talk to me. How do you guys want to see this class finish? Let us know who your top targets are. Comment section below. All right, let's talk some USC recruiting. The Trojans, they get a big home win over Wisconsin. It was an early kickoff, Steve, but recruits still showed up. It seemed like it was a successful weekend because you dropped some new RPM picks. Let us know who you are predicting to go to USC now.
Josh, did you watch any of that USC Wisconsin game on your phone? Does the sun shine brighter out there?
It's Southern California, baby. Yeah, of course it does.
It looked on TV, that USC Wisconsin game. And the way USC responded, again, I think just continues to show recruits where this program is at from a culture standpoint, right? For so many years, we were used to USC bowing out, not being physical in line of the scrimmage, not tackling with a presence or urgency. They got down against Wisconsin coming off a tough loss in Ann Arbor. They collected themselves and shut out the Badgers in the second half and pulled away for a decisive win. Miller Moss threw for over 300 yards, had 3 touchdowns. Defense made a lot of plays. And I just think USC's got some good energy and mojo around their program right now. The commits loved being out there, being around each other. I talked to Elijah Vacona about that. Tristan Castro, one of their top defensive back commits. And they can't wait to get there and be around this coaching staff and this change that's going on and building USC back into a championship contender. Obviously, quarterback Julian Lewis was back out there, and that's huge. Yeah. He's been saying all the right things to USC, still having dialogue with other programs. So we'll see what happens, right? Auburn, Indiana, Colorado. We'll see if any of those can change his mind. I'm not sure he's shut down on other visits to other places. But USC, they're doing what they can to continue to show Julian Lewis that you're going to have great players around you. It's one of the best receiver classes in the country. It's a phenomenal defensive haul to date. They want to add more defensive linemen, whether it's Jakeem Stewart reclassifying or on 300 defensive lineman Benny Patterson, who was supposed to visit this weekend, a Cincinnati commit. Weather did not allow that to happen. He'll be back for the Penn State game. They're trending for former Oklahoma defensive line commit Floyd Bucard. So a lot of emphasis on D-line as this cycle continues, but a top 10 class so far for USC, and they want to keep Julian Lewis as part of that. But it was a big weekend in 2026, Josh. Put in some on-3 RPMs, a couple of them in favor of the Trojans. One was for the number 2 cornerback in the country, R.J. Sermons. He's a legacy recruit that's been to 3 games this year, including the win over LSU in Las Vegas. He talked about the family environment, the opportunity to get the development aspect from this defensive coaching staff, and I've talked about it as nauseum. Lincoln Riley overhauled his entire defensive staff. Defensive coordinator Deontin Lynn is a secret weapon ace. He's got so much credibility with these prospects, as does guys like Doug Belk in the secondary. R.J. Simmons is a legacy recruit. His dad had another great visit. They like where the direction of this program's going. He's going to continue through his process, but I think USC's setting the pace, and my RPM reflects that. And then Deshaun Rideau is the number 7 running back in the country. He's been to a few USC games this year. He's also been to a couple UCLA games. Going into the season, the Bruins look like the favorite, but I think watching USC play this year, seeing the offense, seeing the need in the running back room, the dialogue he's having with the staff, I think he's building great connections with them. I think that the momentum's with USC, so my on-3 RPM reflects that. Another one I could be close to predicting, Josh, is Tamohini Topu, a defensive lineman from Santa Ana Mater Dei. He was showered with attention during his visit to USC on Saturday. Full court press on him. He's got a lot of schools around him, but I like where USC is at with him as well.
All right, USC fans, how you guys feeling after a gritty performance? I don't think last year's team pitches a shutout in the second half to lead the team to victory. It's something that we're seeing this year from the USC Trojans. So how you feeling about recruiting? Steve put in some predictions. Who do you guys want to land? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, got some quick hitters for us. Take us out with those.
Yeah, Clemson hosted defensive lineman Mekhi Williams-Lee over the weekend, a 2025 prospect. He tells me he's going to come back for an official visit. I logged in on 3 RPM over the weekend for the Tigers to add him to the nation's number 15 ranked recruiting class. And then Miami had on 300 defensive back Ben Hanks Jr. on campus for their exciting game against Virginia Tech. Miami, when he committed to Florida, they told Ben Hanks that they weren't going to stop pushing for him. Obviously, Ben's dad played for the Gators. They love that coaching staff. I talked to his dad on Saturday. They're monitoring what's happening in Gainesville with Coach Napier, who they love. If that doesn't work out, who could potentially be in there afterwards? And then meanwhile, Miami continues to play the long game, continues to talk to Ben Hanks, trying to keep him local, and wants to get him back for the Florida State game as well. That will do it for today's episode of Wiltfong Whip Around. Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you hit like and subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel so you have immediate access and notifications to the best recruiting channel in all of sports, the On3 Recruits channel that has the inside scoop with Josh Newberg, the 5-Star Flex with Philip Dukes, And then the new Recruit Reaction Show that's been crushing it on Saturdays following big games. We were on live right after Alabama, Georgia, talking about all the big recruiting scoops from the weekend. So please hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you back for another episode of Wiltfong Whip Around on Thursday.